House Republicans generated big headlines yesterday by unveiling a list of witnesses they want summoned to the impeachment hearing. The most prominent name, Hunter Biden, the former vice president's son, who was making plenty of money in Ukraine. Molly, Washington Post says this about that. Republicans want to publicly question witnesses who would divert the conversation away from questions about Trump's behavior to allegations only tangentially related to the case, naming Biden's and also 2016 election interference. That's the initial take by the paper.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's very defensible. The entire original phone call that set off this entire drama was a discussion about Hunter Biden and his role at Burisma, and also that Vice President Joe Biden, people keep talking about how he's a current presidential candidate, but he's a previous vice president who had a lot of responsibility for Ukraine. This is very relevant to whether what President Trump was saying was okay or not okay. Is it okay to be concerned about corruption in the past versus whether he was trying to affect a forthcoming election? So this is very relevant to the entire issue. And Hunter Biden did work for Burisma. He did get a lot of money on this. Facts. And that relationship was used to affect U.S. policy. And these are important things.
Beverly, the press is already saying that Adam Schiff, the Democratic chairman, will say no to this, and that the GOP will then accuse the Democrats of running a one-sided hearing. And I think there'll be the usual split in the press saying, no, this is outrageous. No, of course, he shouldn't testify. It's a distraction.
Yeah, it's all a strategy by the Republicans. I think it's a smart strategy to put Hunter Biden out there to show that, in their perspective, this has been very partisan. And of course, if you think that there is an issue with what Trump did in this phone call, you have to have an issue with what Joe Biden did as well. So they're keeping this in the news cycle. Also, once again, the whistleblower, the Republicans wanting him to come forward. He was on that list as well. And Adam Schiff is likely to say no to that as well. So I think this is going to come down to a transparency argument also for Republicans saying, look, we're not even getting to all the facts here.
Philippe, you worked in the State Department in the last administration. New York Times says the following. Rarely has the State Department been the center of revolt against a president and believing that policy was hijacked by partisan politics. Now, that's the media consensus, hijacked by partisan politics. But that enables President Trump to say, no, 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 they're being partisan, and they're just people who don't like my policy on Ukraine or anything else on the foreign front.
Well, first, Donald Trump doesn't need anyone's excuse to say it. He says it either way. The people at the State Department, I mean, think about this for a second. Most of them joined at some point when President Bush might have been president, or President Clinton, or the first President Bush. Some of them have been there as far back as Nixon. They didn't join up to thwart Donald Trump. And they often carry out policy that they don't agree with. You think that the bulk of the State Department agreed with invading Iraq? Yet, thousands of Foreign Service officers went and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. My point being, what they are seeing and what they are saying is about breaking the law. They are expressing concerns about how this aid was held up. And it's been reported today that the president's defense that eventually the aid was released, that it was released because the State Department did it because they...
But I love that the Times says that they're at the center of a revolt and does that rather approvingly.
I mean, the entire debate is about who gets to set foreign policy. Is it the people by electing presidents, or is it the bureaucracy? And that's what every piece of testimony has shown thus far, is that some people think the bureaucracy gets to dictate foreign policy over and against the will of the people.
The bureaucracy has a responsibility to follow the law and to not break the law.
There's no alleging there's a law broken.
Yeah, actually, there are many people, including the president's own ambassador and the president's own envoy to Ukraine.
I've got to get a break. We could continue this for another hour and a half ahead. CBS.